Just, you could just have the time to put a suit on before the meeting? No, I'm just kidding you, but well, good.
I'm sorry. All right. Madam Clerk, are we okay, or you need another minute?
No, we're good.
Okay, great, thanks. It now being 5 o'clock, let's call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll?
Mayor Miller,
Here.
Alderpersons Clem,
Here.
McClanathan,
Here.
Ross,
Here.
Parker,
Here.
Busker,
Here.
Brashaw, Keister, and Berberay.
Here. Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 4 for the City Council Finance Committee of the whole meeting is approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. It was moved by Alderman Keister and Alderperson Brashaw simultaneously, and then Alderman Parker. So I'll say Keister and Brashaw for the first and the second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Item number 5, approval of minutes from the March 11, 2019 Finance Committee of the whole meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Ross. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Item number 6, public comments on agenda items, and there was one signed in on agenda item, Mary Ann Garvins. Mary Ann Garvins, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Council and Manager Crow. As I look at the agenda, it really doesn't tell the general public very much of the nature of the business that's going to be discussed, so I object to it as being overly broad and excessively vague. To know the nature of the public business being discussed more specifically, and that members of the general public and media should be able to have copies of what you're considering for a vote tonight, as I'm here as a freelance media in addition to being general public. So handouts would be helpful for the summary of the budget so we can follow along, and if we have any questions, we can have them answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 7, could you stand over? Thanks. Is presentation of the summary of the budgets. As you recall, we had the prior segments that have been broken down over the last 3 or 4 meetings that we had, and now we're at the summary of the whole. So City Manager Crow and Director Bucas.
So I'm don't mean to correct the chairman. This is the fifth meeting that we've gone over the budget here in detail. So this is kind of the summary. So as you know, you're not going to vote on this budget tonight. This is a presentation of the final going forward to move it to for the public hearing on the 1st of April. That's what we're going to be proposing, and we'll have it available for examination as per state law for 10 days prior to that. So we're just going to go through the summary. You know, these numbers will look very familiar to you since you've seen them over the last several meetings. So this is a general fund that we have. This is both revenue, projected expenditures, and projected revenue. Again, we're going to an 8-month budget, so you see a little bit the difference in changes here. Are there any questions on this?
Chair.
Alderperson Brashaw.
Thank you. Manager Crow, have there been any changes or substantial changes made from when we viewed this last time?
There was one. In the proposed budget, we had $1,072,000 coming in for an airport grant, and we also had expenditures of $1,072,000, and we took that out because we're paying our share of those 2 airport projects, the new road and the electric vault, this year. As a matter of fact, we just cut the checks the other day. So,
and that's on the agenda for to approve both those contracts in the council meeting.
Follow-up.
Go ahead.
So that's why they were removed from the budget?
Yes.
And so that, okay, that affects the bottom line. Thank you.
Right. It was a wash.
Okay, thank you.
All right. TIF and pensions. These cover your, the TIFs, as we briefed the last time. This is just the summary of them, as well as the pensions. This includes, the pensions include both our portion as well as the contributions from the pensioners.
Chair,
Go ahead, Alderperson.
thank you. Same question, Manager Crowe. Any significant changes since we
No.
viewed this the last time when we went over every line item?
No.
Thank you.
Water, sewer, storm, and the library. Again, no major changes to this. This is the same budget that you viewed. You viewed water and sewer in February and library the last committee of the whole. Okay. Grants. The big one here that we is the pre-disaster mitigation grant, 1.8 million. We also have in here, that's including, we received notification from the state that we have gotten 300,000 towards that grant. We're just waiting for the governor to sign that distribution as part of our match for that. That total grant request is in the area of 5.6 million.
Alderman Clem.
Just a quick one. When you say we've got 300 to 300,000 towards our share, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
That's correct.
Chair,
Alderperson Bradshaw.
same question, Manager Crowe. Any significant changes from the last time?
Other than what we just talked about, the pre-disaster mitigation grant in here.
Thank you.
So this is other, this is the general.
I'm sorry, Manager Crowe.
Yep.
Before you go off that, I think it's worth bringing up again on the pre-disaster mitigation. When are we expecting a decision on that?
So we are expecting a decision sometime in the May, June. What was good was we've also got a letter of endorsement from Congresswoman Bustos going forward on that, as we've talked about that going forward. So we are anticipating, and I will tell you that, so IFEMA was here today. The inputs we're going to get, and the governor's going to expect it to be out here sometime in the next week to look at, so we can walk. We believe strongly that we stand a very good chance of getting the grant.
Okay. So along with that grant, you've got, right now you said you got the IEMA or IFEMA also out here. And that will help us determine whether we get any reimbursement budget-wise for all the expenses over the past week and going forward here.
They're actually here for two reasons for that, and also look at if we have additional money that they can give to us to assist us here. They, as we've gone through, I talked to Dana Norcraft, who I'll put the grant together this afternoon, and if we, since the county has declared it a disaster, now it goes to the state for them to declare a disaster, and if we get a presidential disaster, us and all the areas in flooding, that will be additional emphasis towards getting that grant.
Okay, but for our budget purposes at this time, since this is all happening in real time, the only one that we're accounting for in one way or the other is we're looking at our portion on the $5.6 million grant that we've applied for a few months ago.
That's correct.
And you say that on that grant, we're talking May, June timeframe for, then when is realistic if we are awarded for it for implementation?
So what they do is they notify the communities in May, June, typically, and then we start in receiving the money in August. So that's when we can start doing negotiations.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Clem.
Just one follow-up on that. I know we were the only one that went through the state of Illinois and all the way up to the federal government, correct?
It was the only one that the state, for the first time, the state said, we're going to only nominate one community, and we're also going to allow for the additional $31,000 over what the value of the homes are. So this is the first time the state's ever done that.
What kind of pool do we go, or districts do we go in, or towns do we go in when we get into the federal end of it?
So the way it works is each state is allotted up to $10 million, and then they look at how many applications they have, and they can grant each state up to $10 million for that. So that's why we also feel good about the possibility on this grant. All right. These are our small accounts as we go forward. Health, when I say small accounts, it does have health care in there. The good news on health care is we've gotten the quotes in, and we do anticipate lower costs again for the second year since we've changed to IPBC. Now the health and environment, Randy, just touch base on that one real quick.
Our current fund for the health and environment, I'm looking for it, excuse me. That's actually our landfill.
Okay, so that's the landfill. That's the amount of money we've got to pay Fairgram every year to monitor that as we go forward. So our total expenditures, I'm sorry, I tried to, so we actually have a positive one of 1.6 million, but that's including the 950,000 that we have set aside for the drilling of the new well, as well as the water treatment, and also the additional money we have set aside for stormwater and other projects within the water and sewer. Just a reminder that our general budget is $29 in the positive.
Manager Crowe, as we get into this cycle, this is going to be the first year that's why we have 8 months. That's the first year we're getting into this calendar as opposed to the different way that we've budgeted, or the different months we budgeted in the past. It'll probably, you'll be able to line up some of these projects a little more.
Yes.
Once we get outside of this transition period.
Yes.
Is that accurate?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was looking at something, and I need to make a correction too, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
That health and environment is actually our refuge collection
Okay,
fund, and then we have a separate landfill fund.
so that's our garbage collection, which, as you know, we're in the process of negotiating the next contract.
Right.
Chair,
Alderperson Bradshaw.
thank you. Manager Crowe, I know you can't reveal anything with those contracts at this time, but do we have some leeway in our budget to absorb any possible additional costs?
So the costs as we go forward will be reflected, the collection will be reflected to what our cost is for that. As I've talked to the council before and also published, recycling has become an issue. They've actually lost, India has now shut down the receiving of recycling. There are communities on the East Coast that have decided to make the decision to save the community monies. They're no longer doing recycling, and we're seeing a growing trend in that matter. So, but we currently, our new contract has recycling, so as we go through the negotiations, that's one of the things we may consider.
Thank you, sir. May I say one more thing?
Sure.
Chair, thank you. For the listening public that's here, when we go through this budgetary process, we've spent several days doing such, and without getting too far off the agenda here, I'd want people to understand that the reason there's so many line columns and stuff in this budget that is being presented to us is we are currently changing our cycle from a 1-year cycle to an 8-month, and so they've had to reflect what we've paid in the past year for expenses, and narrowed it down to anticipated expenditure for just 8 months instead of 12 months. So it is a little confusing for those of you that are new to this. And I just hope that helps you understand a little bit. Thank you.
Alderman Clem.
What was, I know we've had on your memo back and forth, we've talked about or you've talked about the recycling and the negotiations and stuff. When is the actual date that that contract's, I know you started out with it.
The contract ends in June 30th.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right. If there are no changes from the council, we'll go ahead and we'll publish the notice. Debbie, we talked about publishing the notice by the end of this week. We'll have the budget open for examination for the public. We'll have the public hearing on the 1st of April. And at that time, the 1st of April, we'll have first reading, and then the 15th will be second reading.
And just to summarize on that, the process that we've had here is we've had these finance committee, the whole special meeting's been meeting at 5 o'clock for, they said, no, this is the 5th meeting on it. And we went over the individual portions of the budget, and tonight was just the summary to see if we had any additional input. We've gone over all this at some point over the last 5 weeks. So if we don't have any additional, there's still gonna be two more council meetings we got the public hearing and approval in regards to down the road, but this was our last opportunity to provide any additional feedback for the administration. But that was only if you guys had something in the last week that you saw from what we've already previously reviewed.
So the public hearing will be at 5:30 on the 1st of April.
Mr. Chair,
Alderman Keister.
I just want to make a statement. Having been through a number of these budgets, I've got to say this has been the easiest, most pleasant one to do so far. We've had them anywhere from taking forever to do to being put in a format that you have to have an accounting degree accounting and a computer degree to understand. This was very easy to understand, and I think the process has been streamlined. And I want to thank Director Bucas and Manager Kroll for a job well done. This certainly makes it a lot easier than what we've had in the past.
Alderman Clem.
Manager Crow, when will a version, or maybe there is one now, when will a version of this be on the web where people can look at it?
So normally we don't post the version on the web until we have it approved by council. It goes through both public hearing as well as first and second reading. What it does is, by state law, it has to be with the clerk for public examination available, and we have to announce that, be a notice in the paper for 10 days, and it sits available for 10 days for examination with the clerk.
Okay, so the way you put that should lay it out for everybody the way the process is going to be. So if they're looking for some information, it's basically going to be when the budget is there for approval, and when we approve it, it will be on the web, and it can be looked at.
That's correct. Well, they can come up and examine it at any time with the clerk.
Yeah. So prior to the public hearing, at least.
Prior to the public hearing, that's
they
correct.
can come and take a look at it.
Yep.
Mr. Chair.
Alderman Keister.
Yeah, I just want to correct a remission. I did not realize how much your involvement was in this budget. I apologize for that. I want to include you in the compliments for a job well done.
I just chair the meetings. These guys put together all the work, but.
Randy said, "You think this was easy?"
Any other budget discussion on this? And do you need a motion for it to go to on that?
No, I don't.
All right. All right. Okay. Well, that brings us to item 9 because we're at the end of the Finance Committee of the whole meeting. If there's any public comments on the Finance Committee of the whole meeting, we will have our regular 6 o'clock City Council meeting going on after that. So any public comments for the Finance Committee of the whole meeting? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Okay, Parker was the motion. Keister is the second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? All right, I heard no opposition, so I'll say the motion carries. This Finance Committee of the whole meeting is adjourned. We'll be back at 6 o'clock for the other City Council meeting. Thank you.